So finally, and the day has come where Plarium lets us content creators to talk about the new free champion, basically the new champion that we're all gonna get the same way as we got a Skeletor as a daily login reward. So let's have a look at it. Hello, Senda here, and welcome to one more video where we're going to talk about and we're going to see a bit further and a bit more in detail the new free login champion, which is Alice, okay? Alice the Wonder is the name for her, and we have a bit of information that Plarium has shared with us content creators on Discord, and also in the next coming days, but okay, through this week we're going to be seeing Alice in the test server, what she's capable of, how to gear her, different builds, different game modes that she can shine, she can be useful. And today we have, let's change over here to the information that Plarium has shared with us about this champion. It's super easy, it's exactly the same as a Skeletor. 7 first days you just log in, and the 7th day you're gonna get the champion, and then next week if you do certain, you achieve certain milestones, do certain missions, you get certain points, and with these points you can get her red souls, the red stars. That is the same as the souls, okay? So we have here, and as Plarium said, we have we're ready to reveal the theme of the upcoming campaign, which is going to be this next 3 months, the same way as last year. During the first 3 months of the year was the what was it, the Monster Hunter, okay? So we have Alice the Wonder, that is part of this Alice, I don't know how they call it, Alice in, not in Wonderland, but something regarding Alice. And there's 5 new champions, and this is one of them, okay? So Alice is going to be a Sacred Order champion, it's going to be a legendary, it's going to be attack type, and it's going to be affinity magic. And then we're going to go and read this little bit here, which is kind of the idea behind the champion, and then the skills we're just going to go and see directly the champion, because I think it's always a better indicative to read it through the skills and find out, instead of believing 100% what Plarium are saying and their expectations and how they see it. So they're saying basically Alice the Wonder is a hybrid damage dealer, uniquely designed to dominate PvP battles with her ability to both control and eliminate the enemy team. Okay, well, that's to be seen, and we have to see what the multipliers are like and what her kit is like. Her E2 is an AoE attack that will set up the stage by increasing the cooldown of all enemy skills by 2 turns and decreasing the cool meters at the same time. This I'll explain a bit further when we get to the actual skills, because there's some champions that work very similar, there's some champions that are worse, some champions that are better, and there's some caveats to what she can do and based on her affinity and so on. And then her E3 is a single target nuke that ignores lots of defense, and will additionally attack the enemy with the lowest HP if the initial target gets killed. Alice's passive complements her kit by resetting her E2 and E3, blah blah blah, and to compensate for accuracy need, she will inflict more bonus damage for every turn remaining on enemy skills cooldown. Here you can see, I'm gonna put the video over so you can see a bit how this champion looks like. It's actually pretty nice. I'm a bit surprised because Alice normally, or at least the Alice I was imagining, was probably the Alice from the Disney movies, which is blonde. This is a dark-haired Alice. I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that it was a bit of a surprise, but so far, as always, Plarium does, the team, the design team is fucking amazing, and the champions look really, really good. So, that's seen and that said, let's go and have a look at the actual Alice kit that we're gonna see over here in a bit more of detail. Alice Adventure was the name I was looking before. Alice's Adventure. And here is Alice herself. Like I said, free champion, just the only thing you need to do to get this champion is to play every day and log in. That's it. It's pretty easy. So, the skills. What is she capable of? And we'll see, like I said, over the coming days. You'll have, of course, the in-depth guide, all the ways of gearing her, what she's capable of, the multipliers, etc, etc. But so far, all the information we have is an A1 that says that attack one enemy 2 times, places an extra hit if the target has any active skills on cooldown. This means that for the enemy to have any active skills on cooldown, we have to either have put them in cooldown before ourselves, or then they've taken the turn before us, hence they've used the skill, and that skill is in cooldown, and then each hit has an 80% chance of decreasing the duration of a random buff on the target by 1 turn. Plarium said on this Discord message that we've just seen that she is doesn't fear Polymorph Blessing. This is very optimistic, because the only way she doesn't fear it because she doesn't apply debuffs, but also on the other hand, she doesn't steal or spread or any other way that can trigger polymorph. So in this case, decreasing the duration of a random buff, having 2 hits, possibly a third one, is pretty good. It depends like what champion we're trying to attack. We always have Stone Skin that always works a bit differently, but in this case it's pretty decent if we want to get rid of one enemy's buff. For that, we're gonna need accuracy, like pretty much the whole kit. It's very similar to Sun Wukong, to the champion that also has 2 forms, and it depends a bit how do you want to focus the champion. You can go for more full accuracy or a more full damage build, or try to make a hybrid of both, and then you're not super amazing in any of the 2. Alice is very similar in that case. Then we have an A2 that says attacks all enemies. That's pretty good. AoE attack, 70% chance of increasing the cooldowns of all enemy skills by 2 turns, and this is something I'm gonna go and see in the game because there's another champion that does something very similar, and then also has a 75% chance of decreasing each target's turn meter by 15%. There's another champion that also does kind of this. Alice is a smaller version of that, but has a little issue also. And then if at least one of the target's skill has its cooldowns increased to the max, which means it's like the enemy just had used that skill, decreases their turn meter by 30% instead. What am I talking about? What am I comparing it with? So Alice is a bit of a mix of 2 champions. In a sense, it's similar to, if we go to Skinwalkers, if we go to, where is he? Basher, okay? Basher has a very similar skill. Attacks all enemies, increases the cooldowns of all the target skills by 2 turns. Exactly the same. This is good and this is bad because it will prevent the enemy to use any skill, any other skill that is not the basic attack, the default, the base attack, the A1, on their next turn, but it's also not as powerful as other champions, like it could be Warlord. Warlord is kind of a bit more similar to Alice in this sense, which we have him here, because he's not only able to decrease the cooldowns of the skills, which is the same, obviously Warlord is much better, it's a legendary and it's also void, but also has a percentage to deplete each target's turn meter. So 100%, completely deplete the turn meter of the enemies. So Alice in that sense is better because it has more chance to decrease the turn meter, but also it doesn't have the chance to put all enemy skills. This is, for example, this 15% and 30% difference. What it means is, let's say the enemy, or you're facing a Warlord and I'm using Alice. Let's say Warlord used the skill on us for whatever reason. Let's say Alice didn't get the skills in cooldown, but that means that since Warlord has used this skill has entered in cooldown and has 5 turns of cooldown. Next time is Warlord's next turn. At the beginning of the turn, this will decrease to 4, but until that moment this skill is in full cooldown, okay? It's in completely cooldown, so he cannot use this skill. What Alice is saying is that if at least one of the target's skills has cooldown increased to the max, which means has just used them, or a skill that has only 2 turns cooldown, which is not very good because there's not that many champions. Normally, the minimum is 3 on A2 and 4 on A3. Normally, all champions, the quickest they have the skills is every 3 turns. So this every 2 turns is not, it won't happen that often unless we attack them just after they attacked us. And in this case, Alice is an attack champion, is not gonna be super tanky, is not going to be super strong, is more, like I said, DPS, debuffer, depending how you want to gear. But that would be a bit how this skill works, okay? I will be counting more often on this 15% than in the 30% decrease. Then we have an A3, which is the one that Plarium said that is the nuke ability, has attacks one enemy, ignores 20% of the target's defense. This is not that much, 20%. Then we can gear her with something like Lethal, we can gear her with something like Savage, we can gear her with any set basically that makes us ignore enemies' defense. So this will add it on top of that. And if the initial target is killed, depending on what's the multiplier of this skill, also attacks the enemy with the lowest HP, which basically if the lowest HP it's either full turn or it's because we've hit them before. And we'll also ignore 20% of the target's defense, which means like 20% of the first target, 20% of the second target. This to know if this skill is good or not, we have to wait until we test it and to see the multipliers of this skill. Because right now it's hard to tell if it's gonna be like a real smack, it's gonna be like a Georgid A3, or if it's just gonna be a meh kind of hit and it's not gonna be very impressive. And then on the passive, that's kind of what makes it a bit more interesting in that sense. Has two effects, one active, one passive. The passive is present all the time, the active has a cooldown of 3 turns. As far as we can see here, there's no way to decrease these 3 turns, so it's going to be always 3 turns. It says, whenever this champion attacks, inflicts 3% bonus damage to each target for each turn remaining of all their skills cooldown. The bonus damage is counted individually for each target. What does that mean? If taking the same example as we spoke before about Warlord, what this would do is that if that Warlord just attacked us, okay, so we have all our skills in cooldown, this is great because this is a passive, so it's not gonna affect Alice's damage in any way because it's a passive that has a passive effect and that's it. And since that skill from Warlord has 5 turns cooldown, what this passive would do is that Alice would do a 3% for every cooldown on that enemy champion's skill. In this case, it will do 5 turns cooldown times 3 increase of the bonus damage. We will be doing a 15% extra damage specifically against Warlord. If we're fighting, since this is for example an AoE attack, and we attack, let's say we attack this Warlord, we'll be doing whatever damage this skill does, plus 15% or whatever extra damage that we're doing based on the amount of cooldowns the champion has. But this is going to be different because if we're hitting another enemy and that enemy has only, let's say, 2 turns, but okay, just use the skill, has shorter cooldown and it has only 2 turns, what we're going to be doing with this is we're going to be only increasing a 6% against that second champion and a 5 or a 15% sorry against the Warlord. So it's going to depend a bit the amount of extra damage that we make based on the enemy. As you can see, this passive works very good if the enemies if the enemy team has had turn already and we're kind of on a go second setup, which is not ideal for her because if we want to go in a go second and we want to be able to tank the enemy hits, we have to put her kind of in a stone skin to be able to resist that hit. There's other ways, we can use Necreth, we can use a lot of other champions, but let's imagine the scenario that we have to go with Toe Skin. Plus, we also need a lot of damage, because if he ignores defense, he's kind of a nuker. We also need a lot of speed, we also need a lot of accuracy, so it's going to be a champion that is going to be so easy to gear, and that's why I was comparing it a bit with Sun Wukong before. We need damage, we need accuracy, and if we want to have a hybrid of both, it's going to be quite gear demanding. Finally, the active effect, which is the one that has a 3-turn cooldown, resets the cooldown of one of these champions' skills each time they kill an enemy. I mean, every time Alice kills an enemy, if it has any skill on cooldown, that cooldown will be reset, which is pretty good to keep consistency in terms of decreasing enemy cooldowns, or keep consistency if what we want is to do a lot of damage, depending on how strong this skill scale occurs once per skill. All up to this point, perfect. Finally, an aura, increase ally attack 30% in all battles. It's not bad, it's quite versatile, but like I said, this is gonna be a champion that is gonna be slightly complicated to gear because it's gonna be very gear demanding. Worry not. Like I said, this week, as soon as let me know in the comments if you prefer this champion's guide first, or if you prefer the fusion champions, the next fusion champion, which I cannot say up to this moment which one it is, but which video would you like to see first, if her guide or if the guide of the champion fusion? So I'll try to upload that one first so we can see exactly what I'm talking about, how can we gear her, what version is best, multipliers, hits hard, if she doesn't. That, like I said, is all yet to be seen, but you can see it here as soon as that video is uploaded. I think that's all from my part. Like usually, I'm gonna leave a video here in case you wanna see another video. Don't go too far because there's gonna be another very important announcement in a couple of hours regarding that fusion champion. Let me know if you have any questions or anything down there in the comments, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.